It started with the eyes. Every day, as I walked to work, I passed by a man who sat on the bench near my building. Rain or shine, he was always there, quiet, sketching in a tattered notebook. Most people ignored him. Some crossed the street. I noticed his eyes. They weren't dull or lost like others I'd seen. They were focused, present, almost too calm for someone living on the street. I never spoke to him, but I started leaving a coffee beside him in the mornings. He never asked, but he always nodded in thanks. One night, the rain came down in sheets. I forgot my umbrella and sprinted home. As I reached my building, I saw him. He was sitting in the same spot, soaked, shaking. For a second, I hesitated. Then something inside me moved. I ran upstairs, grabbed a blanket and a flask of hot tea, and came back down. I offered it without a word. He looked surprised but took it. I stood there awkwardly, then said, "You can wait inside. Just the hallway. You'll dry off faster." He hesitated, then followed. That night, he stayed curled in the hallway corner. In the morning, I made him toast. I learned his name was Alex. He said little, only that he used to work in design, and things just spiraled. I didn't press. Over the next few days, he became a familiar presence. He never intruded. He cleaned up after himself. Quiet, respectful, gentle. He'd sketch while I cooked, sometimes showing me his drawings. They were good, striking, emotional. I saw the man behind the situation, not the situation itself. My friends thought I was crazy. "You don't know anything about him," they warned. "It's dangerous." But I trusted my instinct. There was no malice in him, only pain. One night, I found him sleeping upright on the hallway floor, using his backpack as a pillow. It felt wrong. I had a spare room. I told him he could stay inside, just until he figured things out. He looked stunned, almost like he wanted to say no. But he accepted. That night, he cleaned the dishes after dinner and said thank you 3 times. Days turned into weeks. He began to smile more. Sometimes we talked late into the night about random things, music, food, childhood memories. He had a quiet humor, a gentleness I hadn't seen in a long time. I lived alone for years after a long, ugly breakup. But with Alex in the house, things felt lighter. He never crossed a line, never made me uncomfortable. He was just there. And somehow that started to feel right. Looking back now, I know that moment, the one where I handed him that tea and opened my door, wasn't just about kindness. It was the moment everything shifted. Not just for him. For me too. I thought I was helping him, offering shelter to someone in need. I had no idea I was opening my life to something much bigger. Something unexpected. Alex settled into the spare room with quiet gratitude. He never acted entitled, never made demands. Each morning, he'd make coffee before I even woke up. We'd sit at the tiny kitchen table, talking about everything and nothing. He told me how he once had his own apartment, a career in digital design, and how losing his mother triggered a downward spiral. There was no self-pity in his voice, just raw honesty. I listened, drawn in by how calmly he carried his pain. It didn't feel rehearsed or manipulative. It felt real. His presence became part of my routine. We grocery shopped together, laughed over burnt toast, and shared stories late into the night. He started leaving sketches on the fridge, portraits of me, our mugs, even the stray cat that lingered outside. His art spoke volumes he never said aloud. I caught myself smiling more, sleeping better. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in my own home. I wasn't just helping someone. I was healing alongside him. One night, I came home to find the entire apartment cleaned, dinner made, and soft music playing. I laughed, teased him about being a house husband. He just smiled and said, "Just returning the favor." We ate together like we always did, but something was different. As we talked, our hands brushed. The air changed. He reached out, gently tucked my hair behind my ear. I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. The kiss was soft, tentative, the kind that says thank you before it says anything else. I didn't plan it. I didn't regret it. After that night, something shifted between us. Not in a dramatic way, just a quiet understanding. He still respected my space, still asked before doing anything. But there was tenderness now. A glance held a little longer, a touch more deliberate. He was careful, never rushing, never expecting. That made me trust him more. I started opening up about my own past. The heartbreak that left me cautious. The walls I built to avoid being hurt again. He listened without judgment, just like I had done for him. He started looking for design jobs again. I helped him build a simple portfolio, fixed up his resume. We went shopping for clothes that didn't scream street. He looked different, cleaned up, but still humble. Every step forward he credited me. "You gave me a second chance," he'd say. But it felt like we were giving each other one. For the first time in a long while, I allowed myself to believe that something real was forming. Not forced, not desperate, just natural. Two people who found comfort in one another after being lost for so long. I wasn't trying to rescue him. I was falling for him. Slowly, deeply, with hope. I let my guard down because I thought I'd found something honest. I let myself feel safe again. And in that comfort, I never once thought to question what he might be hiding. I woke up to silence. At first, I thought he'd gone out for a walk or maybe a job interview. But as the minutes turned into hours, I started to feel it. Something was off. His shoes were gone. The jacket I bought him last week, gone. His sketchbook, the one he never let out of his sight, gone too. I checked his room. Empty. Not a single trace left behind. No note. No message. Just absence. My chest tightened. This wasn't like him. He always told me where he was going. He never left without saying something. I called him. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Nothing. By evening, panic began to mix with confusion. I checked shelters, hospitals, even walked the streets near where I first found him. No one had seen him. It was like he'd vanished. The next few days were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. I kept telling myself there had to be a reason. Maybe something happened. Maybe he'd come back. But deep down, something told me I'd already been left behind. A week later, my phone rang. It was my best friend. Her voice was sharp. "You're not going to believe this. I just saw Alex. He's at the new cafe downtown. With someone else." My heart stopped. I didn't believe her. I needed to see for myself. I went straight there. And there he was. Clean-shaven, dressed in fitted clothes, laughing across the table from a woman who looked like she belonged in a fashion ad. He looked like a different person. Confident. Polished. Not the man I brought home. I stood frozen for a moment, and then I approached. He saw me. For a second, his eyes widened. Recognition. Guilt. But he caught himself quickly. "Do I know you?" he asked, pretending confusion. My throat dried. The woman beside him looked at me, annoyed. "Is everything okay, babe?" she asked him. He wrapped his arm around her and smiled. Yeah, she must have me mistaken for someone else. I walked out without saying a word. My legs felt like lead, but I kept walking until the cafe was out of sight. I didn't cry right away. I felt numb. Betrayal doesn't always feel like a knife. Sometimes it's just a quiet, crushing weight that sits in your chest, refusing to leave. I brought him into my home, my life. I trusted him when no one else would. And he used me to get back on his feet, then disappeared the second he no longer needed me. He never meant to stay. I was never the destination, just a stepping stone. The things he said, the moments we shared, they were tools. I was the shelter in his storm, but only temporarily. He found a way out, and I was left behind in the wreckage of everything I thought was real. I didn't lose love. I lost the illusion of it. And that somehow hurt even more. The days that followed were a blur of denial, anger, and quiet humiliation. I questioned everything. Every word he said, every gesture, every kiss. Was any of it real? Or was I just a convenient refuge, a means to an end? The trust one had given so freely now felt like a weapon turned against me. My home felt empty, not just because he was gone, but because it had been filled with a lie. I wasn't grieving love. I was grieving my own misjudgment. I avoided the cafe, the street where we first met, even the sketchbook I'd found under the couch days later. It had a drawing of me, smiling, carefree. The last page had no signature, no message, just a perfect sketch of our kitchen table. For a moment, I thought maybe that meant something. But I reminded myself, he left, erased me, denied knowing me. That one image didn't rewrite what he'd done. He chose to disappear.
He chose to betray.
People around me tried to offer comfort. Maybe he panicked, they said. Maybe he didn't know how to accept love. But I didn't want excuses. I didn't want to romanticize what was clearly manipulation. It wasn't naivety that hurt, it was the genuine belief that we had something real. And realizing I was alone in that belief was the sharpest betrayal of all. He had seen my vulnerability and mirrored it back just enough to gain my trust. That wasn't love. That was performance. I deleted his number. Blocked it, even though he hadn't tried to contact me. He didn't owe me closure. I owed myself distance. I stopped waiting for an apology that was never coming. The hardest part wasn't letting go of him, it was forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner. I replayed the signs I ignored, the gut feelings I buried under empathy. I mistook silence for depth, mystery for sincerity. And I paid the price for believing someone simply because I wanted the story to be beautiful. But slowly something began to shift. I started reclaiming my space. I painted the guest room a new color, rearranged the furniture. I even went out again, reconnecting with the friends I had distanced myself from during those months. I didn't talk about him much. Not because I was hiding the pain, but because I didn't want his story to define mine. He was a chapter, not the whole book. I still believe in kindness. I still believe in second chances. But I've learned that not everyone who walks into your life is meant to stay. Some come to teach you something about trust, about boundaries, about yourself. I was generous. I was sincere. And that's not something I'll ever regret. If anything, it reminds me that even in betrayal, I stayed true to who I am. He may have left without looking back, but I'm walking forward with my eyes wide open. Not bitter, just wiser. Not broken, just rebuilt. He walked away from a heart that welcomed him. That's on him. But I survived the fallout, and I did it with grace. That's on me.